Let's get into it now. A spoiler-free review of One of Them Days for the people who say, why don't they make good comedies anymore? Well, if you didn't go see One of Them Days or have no plans to, you're missing out. I was laughing throughout this entire movie. Such great chemistry between Keke Palmer and SZA, who this is her acting debut. They play two best friends trying to make back this money because SZA gave her boyfriend $1,500 to go pay the rent, but her boyfriend, very untrustworthy. Instead, he blows it on some fake Gucci shirts in this get-rich-quick scheme he has. Landlord is upset, banging on their door and telling them, if you don't have my money by 5 o'clock today, you guys are going to get evicted. I'm going to throw all your stuff out and leave it on the curb. So Keke Palmer's character, this is a big blow to her. She's going through a lot right now. At the start of the movie, she is getting off work from an overnight shift. She works at a fast food restaurant and is just trying to get back on her feet. And what she has planned for this day is just to go home, go to sleep, and get ready for this big job interview that she has later in the day. And this totally derails it. Therefore, bringing back the title of the movie, it's going to be One of Them Days. So instead of being able to sleep, get all prepared for this job interview, she now has to find a way, along with her best friend SZA, to make this money and then trying to make it to her job interview on time, because if you can get that job, it'll change the course of her life and get everything back on track. So that is the dream. SZA is a little bit opposite of her in the fact that she is an artist. She has all these paintings all around their apartment, which is this really rundown apartment. It's not even a nice apartment, which I think if you're like me or really like anybody who grew up going through hard times, not having a lot, you have lived in an apartment, a trailer park, or something that resembles this. So I very much identified with that. So what I enjoyed about this movie is I think it came down to Keke Palmer and SZA's chemistry. And I thought they worked really well together as best friends. You need that chemistry. And it is hard to recommend a comedy because this movie was funny to me. It could not be funny to you. And I think this is one of those movies that I went into it wanting to enjoy it, wanting to have a good time. And I allowed myself to open up to some of the more ridiculous things that did feel a little bit 90s sitcom here and there. But I think the style of overall physical comedy and some of the wacky things that were very heightened reminded me of something of that time period. So if you don't really like that type of cheesy, over-the-top humor, I think you could watch this movie and think, that is stupid. How did you even find that funny? Why did you recommend that? But I leaned into that. It reminded me of watching episodes of Home Improvement, episodes of Martin, where it's so ridiculous and so dumb. But it is funny when it comes to all the random things and fights and ways they try to make money in this movie. I found it funny. There's one scene in particular where they go to a blood bank. This was also in the trailer. She's trying to make money for all this blood. It's the first day of the worker there, played by Janelle James, who is also in Abbott Elementary, who plays the principal in that show. It's her first day. She can't really find the vein, and then they end up getting covered in blood. And then they did it all for a free biscuit coupon to go to Churches and get some food, which, man, that reminded me of back in the day where I was living in an apartment and I would rely so heavily on fast food coupons, the ones they would just send to you for free, that I would not only take the ones mailed to my apartment, but I would go through the trash and find the ones that other people threw away, because a lot of people see that as junk mail, you're just going to throw it away. But I would stock up on those things, and I would hit Long John Silver's, Taco Bell, Jack in the Box, Whataburger. I'd go and get all those because sometimes when you don't have a whole lot of money, saving $1, $2, getting 2 for 1, that makes all the difference. So it reminded me of that. That whole bit there was one of my favorites out of the entire movie. And even though at times this movie did feel predictable, I called a lot of the things, and I'm trying to get better at that because I know that's annoying. But predictability isn't always bad. Whatever happened to predictability? I think when it comes to a comedy like this, you're not going to write a whole lot of twists and turns and things that come out of nowhere that make you go, oh man, I can't believe they did that. It kind of goes beat by beat of what you would expect in a 90-minute comedy. So much so that a lot of this plot, given that it also takes place in one day, very much reminded me of Friday. And I thought that back when I broke it down in the trailer park, because essentially you have two best friends, you have them trying to pay somebody back by the end of the day, and if they don't, something bad is going to happen. You also have Cat Williams, who plays a guy named Lucky in this movie that very much reminded me of the comedic relief Ezel in Friday. I would say Cat Williams was a little bit more of a guardian angel here, where whenever they're trying to go to one of those payday loan places to get the money and they have like an astronomical interest rate, he is the one outside, also in the trailer, telling them, don't do it. If you don't have the money this month, you're not going to have the money next month. And I think that is another commentary that this movie had, where it was a comedy. You're not supposed to take it too seriously. It's about two best friends and how you kind of hate each other at times, but you remember all the things you've been through. You remember they're the most supportive person in your life. It is also a commentary on the cycle of being broke and how expensive it is to be poor, and how sometimes you fall into that and can't get yourself out because it's so cyclical, because you do things to try to pull yourself out of debt. That puts you more in debt. You take some money at a payday loan place and suddenly you're paying back all this interest on it. So not only was it the money that you needed to make your rent, but now you have to pay this place back for all the interest. It is something that is tough in this country, where once you are in a hole, it is so hard to dig yourself out of. And I enjoyed that they worked that into the plot of talking about their characters and how much they have to work just to make ends meet, talking about their credit scores and how low they are, and how sometimes people just laugh at them for the situation they are in. The movie also did pretty well at the box office. It had a $14 million budget and made $14 million over MLK weekend. So a big win for Sony. I don't think they were expecting it to make that much. Then again, you have Keke Palmer and SZA. Keke Palmer is a big movie star. SZA hasn't done a whole lot of acting. This is her debut, but she's obviously a massive musician. So there's obviously that star power there. So to be able to already make in your first weekend all of the production budget is a big win for them, especially for a comedy, especially where it is so hard to get people to go to the theater to watch a comedy. I feel like comedies almost have that streaming quality to them that people feel like, oh, I could just wait to watch that at home. Doesn't really add a whole lot to go see it in theaters, but this one did. It was a pretty full theater when we went to go see it. I think it adds something when you hear other people laughing and enjoying it. It makes it feel more fluid. It makes it feel more like, oh, this is a bonding experience of a lot of random strangers in a theater having a good time, laughing at these ridiculous things. So I think this is a big win for everybody involved, for SZA, for Keke Palmer, and for Sony, that you can put out a comedy like this with two female leads. At times, this movie did feel like it had a female director as well, but it's actually from director Lawrence Lamont, who this is pretty much his entry into film. That is a big win for him too. Not his entire entry into film, but as far as making a movie on this scale, for everybody involved, this is a sign of good things to come. I think we see how well it does in its entire box office run. This also feels like a movie that will do really well once it goes to streaming. So you could be potentially talking sequel here. So for one of them days, I give it 4 out of 5 free biscuit coupons.